Welcome to the Real and Real Estate Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Lindsay Prino, a realtor in Tampa Bay, Florida for this year.
This
podcast was created to bring awareness of what real estate agents actually do and some other helpful insights in the industry for the average person. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at St. Pete Real Estate. Also, please rate and review if you like what you hear. If you don't, not my problem. Today we have Josh Goodwin with Goodwin Mortgage Group on the podcast. Yes, that's success. Your name is in your business name. Tell us about it. How did you get here?
It was just all given to me. I didn't work for anything. It was really great. No, I'm kidding.
Daddy and mommy gave it to
Yeah.
you. No, but your parents were super successful, so you were around that success
I guess
mentality.
I was a product of that environment, right? And it's actually
Gosh, I
pretty
love hearing
interesting.
that.
Yeah, it's, everyone's got their story, and we all had friends that were given a ton of money and they end up doing nothing with it. But they didn't give me anything to start my business. I did that on my own. But, it's funny. Everyone looks up to their dad, right? I mean, the breadwinner. My mom was the breadwinner. So my dad, I was born in England.
It's a mommy situation.
Exactly. A lot to unpack there.
Freudian.
Yeah, Freudian slip. So I moved to the States when I was 4. And before, my mom had gone to England, my parents had me. She was on Wall Street. So before women were on Wall Street. And then she came back and rebuilt everything because she gave it all up. So long story short, everyone's like, yeah, I want to be just like my dad. I'm like, well, I've got big shoes to fill in their lady shoes. So that's always just been ingrained in me, is to do the best that you can no matter what the situation is.
Which I love. Why mortgage? Why lending?
I got into it by mistake. Yeah, so I was interning at UBS Financial when I was at University of Tampa. And
Oh, right. It's all coming back to me. I remember this conversation.
We forgot our conversation. It's unbelievable. So I wasn't that
I'm just
important.
so vain. I only care about myself.
So I was interning there, and they're like, hey, you need 2 years of sales experience before we'll bring you on as an advisor. And I went to a career fair at the University of Tampa, and this guy's like, hey, do you want to do mortgages? I was like, is it sales? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And long story short, I just really advanced my career pretty quickly. That first job was a call center, and it wasn't my thing. It was horrible. But I remember I was on the phone with this client. I was nervous. I didn't even want to pick up the phone. It was like my first call. And
we've all been there.
We've all been there, sometimes still there. But I picked up this phone. I had this call, and this guy, it was like a scene from a movie like Wolf of Wall Street. They're like, how do you do that? And he tapped me on my shoulder. He's like, how did you do that? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, how did you speak like that? I was like, I just had empathy. I cared about their situation, and I like to connect with people. This is what I love to do. I like to understand how people tick, and more importantly, how I can help them, which in turn helps me. So it's a win-win. And that's something great about our industry is, yours and mine, you're actually helping people accomplish something that is great. You're not selling Oxycontin to a ton of people through pharmacies. And
Have you watched that Netflix show?
Insane.
God.
Insane.
That gives me anxiety within seconds because of how they
because
lead
you missed
up.
out on that opportunity to make all that money.
Yeah, well, obviously that. But when I go deep down, it's like they build up that scene to someone getting hurt.
It's brutal.
Brutal. The guy that fell off the tractor.
Yeah.
Saw
brutal.
it coming.
Yep. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't do good with blood. I don't.
Yeah, but the money though.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
Come on. What are they doing now?
Those guys?
Yeah.
Probably not much.
At least you and I get to help people make money, right? And see like the payoff and the reward.
Yeah. I mean, what about that deal we just did?
Okay. First of all, I'm glad you brought this up. Josh saved a deal. That's only why he's on. Just kidding. No, I'm going to work with him going forward because this, like what you're seeing here and how he's talking to you, this is Josh all the time. Like super humble. He's just a good person to be around. And like his family, his mom, he was surrounded by success. You just want to be surrounded by him because of your nature. I remember the first time we met, I'm very animated in a sense, like not different personality sometimes, but just very animated. And you're just very cool, calm, collected at all times, which is fine. It's good. You're just the same person throughout. Yeah. So it was like, okay, is he going to loosen up a little bit? No, this is you. Like you are yourself 110%.
Yeah, it can be to a detriment. So it's either people, so when they first meet me.
I think cool, calm, and collected rather than like super manic, or
I mean, depending on the day, we all have anxiety that kicks in. But
you're professional, like, by far.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that got me really far in my career in the beginning was my ability to speak to somebody 20 years my senior and, you know, a guy that's bought 15 homes and talk about how the bond market correlates with why rates are where they are right now.
Yeah.
And then first time home buyers explain them to what, you know, a down payment is.
Right. And that's being a true expert.
Yeah.
By far, right? Or a genius. Genius, so to speak.
I mean, I'd like to think I'm a genius, but not really. I put my pants on one leg at a time, you know?
I've heard the quote, if you can explain something, right, to what you were talking about, one extreme, and then also explain that concept to an elementary school kid and they understand it, you're a genius. You're an expert in your field. But enough of that before his head gets too big. This deal was insane. It was, I'll give you a little rundown of it, but I was supporting both sides, both the seller and the buyer on the deal. And it was really a situation where my buyers were interested in living in a particular neighborhood. And we put an offer in, and this was almost a year ago now. Where
really? It was that long?
I think so, yeah. It really was. Oh my God.
Well, that's a true
testament
we're in
October.
To you, though. I mean, sticking with that for a year.
Oh gosh, 7-8 months we're with our clients sometimes. It's like we become part of the family. So anyway, they put in an offer and they were financing, and what we know is very common over the last 1 to 2 years in Tampa Bay is a cash offer came in, they got kicked out.
Yep.
What's really funny too is it was about $15,000 lower than their finance offer, but it was cash, and cash is king. They really liked the neighborhood, so I picked up the phone and cold called the entire neighborhood and got all the phone numbers, texts, calls, emails, just saying, hey, I have 2 buyers that are, you know, having a baby come September, and they would really love to be in this neighborhood. If you're interested in selling or have thought about it, let me know. Let's have a conversation. You're not tied, you know, you're not tied to me in any way, shape, or form, but let's talk about it. Well, it ended up working. So that seller was obviously thinking about selling and purchasing something new because I already had a buyer brought to the table.
Yeah.
Well, when interest rates rose, I was on the phone with Josh, and this was a situation too where I had connected them with 3 different people. I had recently joined a team where that team mainly used Josh for their financing deals, and 3 lenders, and my buyers still couldn't find a situation that they were comfortable with. They have the second baby on the way. What do we do? This is a big jump in payment, right?
Money's tight.
Over the course of 30 years. And there's another aspect I want to get into with how that rate changes, like from month to month, if you have a big jump.
And we can get into that, and I want to interrupt you real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Just to say, in this market right now, you truly need an expert, and what you did, cold calling on prospective homes to find, you know, someone that's willing to sell, that needs to be done. And you're one of few that do that. And that's why you're successful in what you do. There's a lot of people that aren't unwilling to do that. So when they say, yeah, you know, my cousin just got into real estate and I'm going to use him to represent me. For those listening right now, don't take this personally. Bad idea. You need somebody with experience. You need somebody that has drive, that is willing to do those things that others aren't, because that is what it takes to get deals done in this market right now. Because there's more inventory lately than we've had, but that inventory isn't choice inventory.
Right.
There's still extra work that needs to get in. So continue.
Thank you. Appreciate you saying that. It's, if you haven't been
it's not just because I'm on the show, I'm being honest.
I paid him. When you've been in corporate America and you have to make cold calls, I think the transition into this real estate industry is a lot smoother than
you don't have that fear.
Most people. Oh, I have the fear every day I pick up the phone.
Do you really?
Yes.
Still?
The shit people say. Like, I have screenshots of text messages that, well,
you got to let it roll off your back.
Honestly, I'm going to create a reel about it though. Like, these are all the things that were said to me in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
But anywho, they had already been with 3 different lenders, and introducing them to Josh, what he was willing to do was just go, we're not going to get into the details of it because everyone's going to be like, Josh, do it for me, do it for me.
Let's not.
I'm going to tell them now.
Go ahead.
Just kidding. But what he did was so incredible, didn't benefit him at all. Like, at all. And he still chose to do it. I had never worked with him before. And it was something to me where I'm like, gosh, this is why I love business, right? Just black and white. working with people, trying to get a win-win situation, doing something that nobody else can do, like going to sleep at night, regardless of what happens. Like that was something that you and I experienced together that was like, okay, shit, this is why we do what we do.
Correct.
And then being able to send you the picture of them at closing day. They had their baby on September 11th.
Which is awesome.
So woo-woo. And just seeing that come full circle is the why.
Yeah.
And then also having this podcast too, what we're going to get into today, just bringing insight into the market and not trying to sugarcoat it, I think is scary as shit, because we're going to get into some things that I don't think a lot of real estate agents are talking about, but let's
just dive in.
Yeah. Like talk to us about your 2% interest rate that you're offering.
Yeah, it's a really good program. And then I wake up from my dream and we realize that rates are 7%. But
yeah, tell us. When someone asks you, it's probably a good lead in. When someone asks you what's going on in the market, what obviously loaded question when it comes to a lender, real estate agent, or like, what are you talking about? But at the end of the day, what are people talking about? Yeah.
I mean, and it's an interesting question, right? Because we're in the business of selling homes and doing mortgages. So when somebody asks, what's going on?
Everything's great.
It's wonderful. I'm smiling right now. It's really, really great. But my first response to that is, what do you mean? And it's a good way for you to really understand what your clients are thinking. And in this business, and especially at a time like this, where it's not just like, hey, you write 30 offers like it was in 2021. But even before that, 2017, 18, 19, we weren't having these conversations. Rates were 4%, went up to 5s. That's when they shot down shortly after that. But, we're dealing with a lot of stressors. There's Citibank is laying off 5,000 people. I mean, you were in the tech industry before, they did mass layoffs, and that was even last year. So a lot of different industries are taking beatings. So I always like to ask my clients, what do you mean by that? What do you mean what's going on in the market? Then they tell me, well, what are interest rates and what do you see that they're going to do? Right. So as we discussed earlier before we got on the show, I tell clients, hey, we're not going to discuss interest rates right now. This is a blanket of where they are, but let's go over and see what you're approved for. And more importantly, let's focus on monthly payments. Right. So the big indicator for me is, gauging what someone's comfort is with a payment. Because right now, let's be honest, the market is up and down. It comes in waves of busy and then it's slow. People are worried. And, we discussed this. People are buying because they're relocating, marriage, death, divorce. It's always been that. And then you have your people that are just buying right now because they want to get out of their apartment. Rents have increased and they've saved up enough money to do it, or they heard about a down payment assistance program that allows them to do it. So you've got your first-time home buyers. You've got somebody that's in a home that I speak to all the time. Hey, I've got a 3%, but we really want to get into another home. The rates are 7%, 8%. What does that mean for us? And then you've got your buyers that just don't care, right? When someone's buying a $15 million home, not much is really going to change that. Honestly, for them. Yeah. They're typically a cash transaction. It's very easy.
And luxury is a whole nother ballgame. Completely
different ballgame. It's a great market to be in. I like those waters. We do a lot of jumbo loans, but the more rewarding ones are the closing that we had. I enjoy those. I like the ones that are a little more difficult because it's keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The market is, there's a lot that's going to happen over the next 2 years. We were told over a year ago that rates were going to drop. They're not. Mortgage companies are hemorrhaging money right now. Some that you think would be buying companies in the next 6 months, they will have for sale signs up. And that's scary.
You know what I do appreciate though about people asking us? It's like they're not just assuming they already know what's going on with the real estate industry.
Well, some are like that still.
Absolutely. Some are.
I do love those conversations. They're like, that rate's too high. I'm like, really?
Honestly.
What do you think rates are?
But also 30 years ago. What was the rate?
Correct. I mean,
pretty much what it was right now. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, or higher. So.
And then in the 70s when inflation was, we're talking upwards of 20%, where it's, what is it right now? Like under 10 or about 10. Let's talk about the 70s when inflation was like 2 times as much and people were still buying homes regardless. At the end of the day, like you said, those factors, people have to buy, people have to sell, they're relocating, life happens. But when we're talking about this industry and we've gone from, a 3% or 4% rate to now Above 7. We're still above 7, yes?
Yeah. I mean,
what is the difference in monthly payment so that someone understands, right? Because they look at people are freaking out just because they freak out.
Correct. Because they're hearing everything they see on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. Market's falling apart.
Those videos really grind my gears.
They do. Some of them are pretty funny, but
they are. Yeah. Not for us though.
I will say this though, in that defense, comparing that time frame when inflation was 20% to now, there's one key difference. So our interest rates, 2 years ago were 3%. How they've increased so drastically, so quickly, that is a big factor of this.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, whoa, where did this come from? That's a lot to adjust. People aren't making any more money right now. Things are more expensive. So not only are we combating inflation, people are losing their jobs. There's less money to go around. People are not getting the pay raises that they either think they deserve or they should be getting.
Right. Because
companies are having to, get ready for what is about to come in the next 12 to 15 months.
Right.
And you can, I was having this conversation on my way up here. You can't have all this manipulation and increase in rate and not expect for there to be turbulence after that. So it's not like, hey, they raise rates today and it affects us today. No, they raise rates today and then we feel that effect 3 to 6 months from now. But to get back to your
what do you mean by that? Wait. What do you mean, like we feel the effects?
This is the best way to explain it, right? The game we used to play as a kid, telephone?
Yeah.
If there was 4 of us in a line and I start off by saying, Lindsay likes apples, by the time it gets to that 4th person...
Lindsay hates apples.
No, it'll probably still be Lindsay likes apples, but when you have 70 people in a line, at the end of it, it's like your name's gone and it's, Brian hates the color green because he ate a banana. You're like, what?
Right.
What does that even mean? So it takes time. You can't make an adjustment for a whole market to experience on rates and think it's going to take effect immediately. It takes time to build that up.
So what are you saying? What goes up must come down, and you're not talking about the rate.
Yeah, exactly. It's cyclical. I mean, these are moves. This is just an unprecedented move. I mean, so during this time, because I've been in the industry 10 years, I like to talk to people that have been in it before me. And a lot of the veterans that I speak to, that have been doing this for 30 years, a lot of them have said to me, I would take 2008 over this because it was just one day, done.
Yeah.
Everything was done. We've had a slow bleed. I've been feeling this for 16 months. Last May was when it changed for us and production started to really decrease and we started noticing it.
I got in the market at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that, though.
I still did good last month.
It's I sense the sarcasm with you, but, a lot of good companies are built in times like this. So for me right now, it's just capturing market share. A lot of people are getting out of the business, providing to, give good service, be a positive light, be good energy for people.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do. But to really add to it, I mean, yeah, we're headed in some strange, unforeseen times. Everyone's crystal ball is as clear as the next person. Nothing makes sense on any of the markers, right? We've got inverted curves right now that indicate a recession is coming, but then there's articles that come out that say it's going to be a soft landing. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's going to be a soft landing. I believe it's going to be difficult, but when it comes to purchasing real estate and investing in real estate, whether you're buying an investment property or you're buying a primary residence, it's an investment. Now, we're not going to see the values of appreciation that we were seeing. We are still seeing some appreciation in certain areas, and then it's plateauing or decreasing in other areas. I think in the immediate area for us in Tampa, South Tampa, where I live, St. Pete, downtown St. Pete. I mean, there's an influx of people still moving here.
Right.
And it's keeping values elevated. Now, you do see some listings sitting, but there's a reason for it, whether it's price or location. But it's a scary time. I'm excited for it. I'm odd like that. I mean,
guys, I'm scared by what he said.
It's exciting because there's opportunity for growth. Like, so for example, I have a client right now who wants to purchase a primary residence. And
First time or?
They have a house that they're selling.
Okay.
But they only bought it 2 years ago. So there's not a massive amount of equity in it.
And do they have a real estate agent?
They don't. Otherwise it would be with you. The sales pitch. So
I always got to ask, always be selling.
Always be selling. So the first thing they said to me was, we don't like, where are rates? And I told them where rates were. And they're like, that's a big difference. I'm like, okay, well, let's break this down. And you and I discussed this. There's the payment you want.
Yep.
There's the payment that you can afford, that you want to afford as a max. And then there's the payment that you can actually go to that you don't realize you can go to without it affecting your life. So our main focus at my company and what we do, we don't want to, I hate the term house poor, but we want to make sure that this doesn't affect our clients' financial well-being. So I really, truly believe that if you can purchase a home as a primary, you've got a secure job, you have savings. If you can afford the payment, this is a time in history right now where rates are high, very high. They moved up very quickly. They will come down. They have to. It's just a matter of when. They can't keep them up this high. When you can get 5% in a high yield savings account, when's the last time we had that?
Right.
It's insane, which I'm taking full advantage of right now. But if you can afford the payments to purchase a home, I still truly think it is a good time to buy, because if you're going to live in it, and an article just came out, the average time that someone's going to spend in a home, it used to be 5 to 7 years. It's now gone to 13.2 years. So if you can afford those payments and you don't over leverage yourself, do it. It's a good time to buy.
Now, should somebody do that with the mindset to refinance, or is that healthy?
Is it healthy?
Like for their financial situation, or for anyone in general?
This is where it's healthy, right?
I can almost afford this payment, or I can just about afford it, right? Like those 3 buckets you have. And then they're thinking, okay, well, maybe in 2 to 3 years I can refinance.
Correct.
So I'll be okay.
So I tell clients, do not bank on things. Okay. Maybe rates stay this high for 3-4 years. Who knows? So I tell them, make your decision based on your financial situation right now and what you think it's going to be in the future. Not a raise, but if you stay at the same level of pay, can you still go on your vacations? Can you do what you want to do? Don't bank on rates coming down. That's why you're going to just like, I can afford this payment for 6 months. I'm going to take a chance.
Right.
Not a good idea. So we have programs to counter that. A 2-1 buy down, for example. If somebody gets seller concessions, so let's say the rate's 7%. On a 2-1 buy down, what that means is for the first year, your rate is 2% lower. The next year, it's 1% lower than the third, and remaining, if it's a 30 or 27 years, are that note rate. So that gives you a cushion. And, we're all believing that rate should be dropping within that 2-year period. Then that gives you more of a warm feeling. And I also tell them, let's focus on what the actual rate is on that third year.
Right.
And remaining 27 years. Can you handle that? And if the answer is yes, then let's move forward.
And let's break down the seller concessions too, because I feel like a lot of real estate agents should be doing this. If they're well educated, they talk to their lenders frequently. You can either take $10K off of the purchase price or ask for $10K in seller concessions, which that $10K, if you know anything about lending or mortgage rates, whatever, I'm going to try to break it down even further. But if you go to your lender and they're like, hey, the rates, they tell you the rate's 7% based on all these factors, rate 7%. Well, you can also give money to buy down that rate with points.
Correct.
Right? So typically for a 0.5%, how much is?
Depends on the day. I love that question. Depends on the loan amount, depends on the day.
Give me a number for my example.
So let's say $500,000 loan. So 1 percentage point of that would be 5,000.
Okay.
Right?
Right. So that 10 grand you can actually use, right?
To
Instead of getting it off the purchase price to give to your lender, so to speak.
Yes.
And that's not, it's all done at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't go to me. I wish it did.
Right.
That'd be great.
But you can essentially put that credit towards
buying down the rate. Yes.
Buying down the rate.
So with just spending money to buy down a rate for a fixed without that 2-1 buy down, I haven't been advising people on it, because if rates are going to refinance in a year, you just burned that money. You're not going to get that back.
Burned it, yeah.
Because there's a recoupment period. If I spend this much money to get a lower rate based on the monthly savings between the par rate and that rate, how long will it take me to break even on that money I just spent? So back to what you said, yes, do not get $10,000 off the purchase price. Now, if you're paying cash, $10,000 off the purchase price is $10,000 less out of your pocket.
Right.
But on a mortgage, 10 grand over 30 years, the rule of thumb is for every $1,000 you take off, it saves you $5. So $50 on 10 grand when we could buy your rate down and save you 150, it makes way more sense. So for those that are gridlocked right now, like, oh my God, there's no other option for me. I don't want a 7% rate. Talk to me. Call your lender. Call anybody. What are my options?
Right.
I don't want you to pull my credit, but why don't you tell me what my options are?
And nobody does that. It is so interesting to me coming into this industry and how people are so afraid to have conversations.
What's
Obviously,
the fear of the unknown?
Fear of the unknown. But like you and I have had conversations, some people that I work with, like whether you're female or male or, you know, you just have this like idea that you don't want to look stupid. Right. So we're afraid to ask questions that we think that we should. And it's okay. Like you're not supposed to know everything about the home buying process. You're just not. It's not your industry. You don't feel like you have to, but I do feel like if people knew there's another genuine person out there that they can have a conversation with, that's not going to judge them, that's not going to try to sell them on things, like no strings attached, guys. Go call up a lender. Simply say, please don't pull my credit, but can we check out my financial situation?
Yeah.
Right?
I did one last night. There was a realtor relocating from, I forget which state it was, and the loan's going in her husband's name. She's like, hey, I don't want to pull credit. Can we go over some options? I'm like, what your debts are? Well, we're paying everything off. Great. Okay, what's income? And gave her a baseline of what she could do. So, and the first thing we say to all our clients every time we get on the phone with them is a couple things. One, during this transaction, we want to exceed your expectations. So if your expectations are not exceeded, we love constructive criticism. We want to hear it because we want to make it better for you. Two, there are no dumb questions. Ask away.
That's and
people feel...
I know that you get off the phone and they're like, that was a dumb question.
Honestly, I'd love...
I think I've had a few. I've talked to you.
I have, yes. I mean, we all have. But my big thing is in the way I look at it, right? Whether it's good feedback, bad feedback, or a silly question or a smart question, perception's reality. So if that's their perception, it becomes their reality and I make it my reality. How can I alter that to make their life a little bit easier? And there's nothing better than, like, for example, I had a call last night before I got to the gym. And I just had to throw that in there, going to the gym.
Flex.
So I got off the phone with her and she spoke to one of my staff and she couldn't quite understand points on the 2-1 buy down. And I went over it with her and she like let out this like sigh of relief and she's like, man, oh God, that just, thank you for going over that with me. Hearing that, dude, you've won. When you can do that for people,
right?
Especially at a time like this when tensions are high, there's a lot of uncertainty, and the deals we're dealing with right now, they've got, the example, a lot of hair on them. They're tricky. When you can make someone's life a little bit easier doing that, that is what it's all about, and especially in the market that we're in right now, because the news is so up and down. It's, hey, it's a great time to buy. Oh my God, no, it's not. It's, wherever you get your news from, trust me, I've been on news stations. I've been interviewed. I happen to know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I wouldn't. There's a lot of people that write articles where I read it. I'm like, what are you even talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
So there's an Instagram account I'm thinking of. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but like a lot of these videos that are talking about all like rates, what the market's like. And it's misinformation. It makes our job a lot harder.
Yes.
Right? Because people are coming in with that bias already.
Correct.
So, and that was when we were talking about, I'm like, all right, Josh, this is my outline. These are some questions I want to talk about. And you're like, well, reality is, and I'm like, okay, let's give reality a check then. Right. And like, let's talk about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So give us more insight on what you think is to come and what's happening right now. Like straight up, tell us.
Nobody really knows. And anyone that says they have a definitive answer on it, they know something I don't. Chances are they're just taking a wild assumption as to what they see. So people determine what's going on in the markets by data. None of the data is correlating. So to use an example of that.
But if someone were to be buying last year as opposed to this year, would you say, yeah, now is a good time to buy?
I think it is always a good time to buy if you can afford it. Now, compared to last year to this year, rates are much higher than they were last year. So on that aspect alone, I mean, would I buy an investment property right now? No.
Okay.
I personally wouldn't. Rents are starting to decrease in certain areas, right?
Or they're giving a 1 or 2 months free.
There's some vacancies. So one of the big topics, and this could be a whole nother podcast, Airbnbs. I mean, in certain areas, they're down 52%. I know people that are down on their Airbnbs. You know, so you get a lot of people that had an interest rate of 2%, bought a new property, and they Airbnb'd their last one out. A lot of that is changing.
Right.
If you have all the knowledge, the financial backing to purchase a home, it is still a good time. But if you don't, and you're just doing it to do it, and you don't have a plan for your finances or what that's going to look like if you get laid off. So I look at everything as an 08 scenario. Any investment that I buy, any business venture that I go into. If in 2008, when, and I wasn't in the business then, but, I know a lot of people that were, if the market just completely turns on its head, values drop on properties, am I still going to be okay? If I lost my job, do I have enough money saved up to where I'm going to make my payments? If the answer is yes, and I can answer yes to all those questions, I move forward. So we've been giving our clients, step by step, let's go through these things. Are you comfortable after everything I just reviewed with you? Yes, I am. Okay, well, let's move forward. Let's do it. Then it makes sense. It has to be educated, right? And, it's very frustrating because I get clients that get phone calls from, there's something going around and hopefully it's coming to an end soon. When somebody has their credit pulled, there's a good chance that the credit bureau will sell their information.
Third party
because when
calls,
you pull credit, you have to mark why you're pulling it. They will sell that to call centers on mortgage companies, and people get blown up. And I've had calls from clients and they're like, this other mortgage company called me. They told me that they're our biggest competitor. And I was like, great, don't know them. Never heard of them. But they're like, yeah, they can get me a 6% rate. Meanwhile, rates are 7%. I'm like, well, let me explain it to you what that means. There's going to be a cost that they're not telling you. So I said, if I told you when we're at a traffic light, when it's red, that means go, you're going to look at me and say, you're crazy. What you just told me, I'm looking at you and saying they're crazy. There is a cost that's hidden with that. They're like, no, they promised me there isn't. I was like, well, then they're not making any money and they're doing this for nonprofit. And in that case, I'm going to get a job application, close my company down and go work there because I'd still be doing 70 loans a month if that was the case. So it's a lot of combating misinformation and wrong explanations on things. And that's a big piece of my business right now. So yeah, I don't know what the future is going to look like. What's happening right now with rates, I remember earlier in my career, I wouldn't lock a loan till the end of the contracts. And that was just lack of experience and process, but the market didn't move much. If it moved an eighth of a point from like 4.5 to 4.65, maybe.
And you have to pay to lock, right?
You don't pay up front. If you want to pay point, it's all done at closing. So depending on the lock period, right? If it's a 43-day lock, which most lenders are 30 days, my 30 days is a 43. So we have 13 extra days. But the longer the lock period, the more expensive that rate becomes or the higher rate you take. But back to my point, interest rates are moving what would typically happen within a 2-month period. They're moving intradaily that much. It could change a quarter of a point. It could change a half a point from one day to the next. So
that's like cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's insane. So when people say, what's going to happen? We don't know because nothing's correlating. No data is lining up with what's taking place right now. The CPI data came out and there was one bad marker on it that the month over month inflation went up when it was supposed to go down. Wasn't a massive amount, but it went up and we're supposed to be trending down. Year over year is still the same, obviously, because it's not another year. But the month over month went up. I was like, oh my God, the bond market's going to take a tank. And that's what our rates are correlated on. And it rallied. The next day, absolutely tanked. Absolutely tanked. Rates got worse. Things increased.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a roller coaster right now. So it's not.
So you would say a rule of thumb is to always look or correlate your data with the bond market.
And it doesn't correlate. It does not correlate right now. So what it is, it's just constant communication with our clients. Hey, this is what rates are looking like today, tomorrow.
Right, because it was surprising for some of my buyers before they were working with you when they got a specific rate by the time they closed on a property, because it's not like, hey, Josh, can you get me a mortgage? This is your rate. And then they get the house of their dreams. Like that doesn't always happen in real estate, especially in a popular market like Tampa Bay.
Correct.
you see a few offers on a house. They were surprised that when they got that and they finally closed, say 2-3 months later, they had to get a new pre-approval letter, which is standard.
Yep.
But that pre-approval letter wasn't mimicking the rate that they got 2 months ago. So,
and people found that hard to believe because they don't do this every day. They're like, what do you mean that rate's
you
different?
Already told me it was this. Like,
correct.
Now I have to buy it for this. And it's not you.
It's not me. It's the market. But it all goes into the explanation. A lot of people do not explain that. So what we do with our clients is I pad the rate. I'll add half a point in there and say, hey, this is not what it is. You're actually lower, but I'm giving you worst case based on this property in case the market moves within the couple days it takes you to get that under contract.
Okay.
And people love that. They appreciate that. But it's, in this business or any business really, but especially in times of despair, you need to have a process of high level communication that you can explain to everybody and set safeguards for yourself.
What's one thing that you wish real estate agents would do to make your job a little bit easier? What's something I can do? Josh.
Honestly, just high levels of communication and competence. I'm very fortunate that the people that I work with, I call friends, right? So I tell everybody, I've told you, if there's anything I can do better, I want to hear about it. You're not going to offend me.
He actually has.
And that's the only, and this is a sidebar. If I had two options and someone was going to give me good feedback or tell me what a great job I did or give me criticism, I take the criticism every day.
All day, yeah.
Because that means they care about you and they want to see you do well. And I live and die by that. So for the real estate agents out there that I do business with or any new ones that we do business with, high levels of communication, we're a team. I'm here, to represent you. So when you refer me a client, I take that very seriously. You're trusting me with your reputation. And honestly, you're living your paycheck.
Yep.
So we don't take that lightly. But back to your question of what real estate agents can do, just keep on doing what you're doing. We have the safeguards in. We follow up with our clients that are pre-approved weekly. We give you updates. So when you're busy, drumming down this business and there's a client that you've had pre-approved for 6 months or a year, like the one we just closed, we're keeping you updated so that you may have forgotten about them. Well, not forgotten about them, but they're not on your top list on a hot burner because they're waiting.
And no one likes feeling that way.
So we do it to make your life easier. We make a phone call. Hey, Lindsay, how's your search going? I know it's brutal out there. Yeah, it's really tough. I completely understand that. But, we take notes. So on the phone with a client, and they're like, oh, I'm headed to my son's baseball game next week. Follow up. How was your son's baseball game? Oh my God, you remembered, right? Don't you love when your boyfriend remembers things you tell him? You're like, oh, he cares. So we do that for clients. We've always done that, but we do it right now, especially because there's so much information out there. Like I said, that is not good. There's people just hunting for deals. We want our clients to feel comfortable with us and know that we're invested in them. So we like our real estate partners to do the same thing, but if they don't have that bandwidth, we do it for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to end on is a high note.
Yeah, tell me.
So we obviously know that things are a little bit unpredictable right now in the real estate market.
Yeah.
If you hear someone constantly saying, yeah, it's awesome time to buy, maybe just check them a little bit.
Yeah.
But for us, right, like at least communicating that there is some unknown, there's some things that we can't necessarily predict like we used to be able to with our charts and graphs. But at the end of the day, if you do want to buy, there is a positive aspect of that I've seen over the last couple of months, and that is less competition. And I would love to get your take on this, but when there was offers being written on a house, 2-3 offers, we're seeing a little bit less of that so that things can get accepted. Yes, they're sitting on the market a little bit longer. Don't have like the best houses on the market right now, but when they do come up, I actually am seeing a little bit less competition.
Depending on the area.
Oh, absolutely.
But there is
What's
less competition.
Tampa like?
It depends on the neighborhood, right? So there was one where a partner might ask me, hey, do you want to do this open house with me? I was like, I've not done that in years, but absolutely, let's do it. She called me up. She's like, hey, we got a couple offers. One of them's 80,000 over. I was like, what? But it was the neighborhood, and there's not many homes like that, and it was upgraded. So yes, there's less competition.
There's still diamonds out there.
There are, and they go very, very fast, which is indicative of a strong market still. But there is less competition. There's more opportunity. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Right. So just to recap, in 2021, there would be lines of people at an open house, 40 people outside, and agents are taking offers at the open house. So back then rates were low, but I remember clients crying on the phone. I've written 40 offers. I'm losing my mind. So that was done, low rates. Now it's higher rates, and your offer is more than likely going to get accepted, and you might be able to get seller concessions to help you with your closing costs. I kind of like this better because you marry the house, you date the rate. There's going to be a time when you can get that rate decreased, and you're in the house you want at a better value.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the benefit too. Whereas you're renting, it's most likely just going to keep going up.
Keep increasing, yeah, of course.
And with the new laws too, you as renters don't have to be made aware of an increase within a certain amount of time anymore.
I'm aware of that.
So it used to be, I think, like 30 or 60 days.
No,
now landlords,
it's going up. Yeah. Wild
and there's
times.
no threshold. I know, wild. So why not put that money into a house?
Yeah.
And we'll connect you with Josh too.
There we go. It's a
win-win for everybody.
It's a bad time in this market right now, but it's a good time. And I'll just recap that again. And I've told clients, I don't think you should do that. I got a client call me today. Hey, I've got a 5% rate. I want to refinance. Don't do that. That doesn't make sense. So I don't tell everybody, yes, it's a good time for you.
Yeah.
You know, I like.
It truly depends on the situation, the
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
On the situation. Absolutely. I want to buy an investment property. Great. Well, what's the rent? Well, it's going to be this. I'm like, well, that barely breaks even. So yes, we don't sugarcoat it. It is a good time for the right person. And that is something we help you discover if it's that good time for you.
Right.
Yep. Easy.
Josh, it's always lovely talking to you.
Likewise.
Again, thank you so much for what you did on the last couple of deals, because, man, you really saved my ass. And I appreciate it. He's always on the same page with us too. So even though he has a little bit more information, right, than real estate agent does, he's going to always communicate with you. And it was absolutely incredible what you did for my clients, what you did for me. And yeah, we're going to have you on again. We're going to go down another rabbit hole, but
love it.
Is there any way they can contact you? Let them know.
Yeah.
Email, phone number.
We'll do this.
Give them your digits.
My digits. So I'll give everybody my personal number, and that funnels through to my office, and that is 813-230-5982. So please, even if it's what you think may be a dumb question, I promise you it's not. Reach out, and let's see what we can do to help you in this time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Whoop, whoop.
There we go. First one in the books.
Oh, my butt just stuck to the chair.